This is a virtual hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the City of Thorold for Thursday, June 16th, 2022. Everyone present will be given an opportunity to speak for or against the applications being heard. For your information, Committee of Adjustment is a public process. Personal information such as the applicant's name and property address, which is reported at a Committee of Adjustment meeting, is public information. Minutes of this Committee of Adjustment meeting will be received by Thorold City Council at a public council meeting and become part of the public record. Please address your comments and questions through the chair. A copy of the decision will be sent to the applicant or agent and to any person who files a written request. Please send an email to the Secretary Treasurer at angela.nesbitt@thorold.ca. Agencies commenting on applications may request that certain conditions be imposed. Voicing objections to these conditions will not adversely affect the committee's decision. Committee of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial body operating under the Planning Act, the Municipal Act, and the Statutory Powers Procedure Act, as well as various provincial regulations. Sections 45 and 50 of the Planning Act outline the circumstances surrounding the approval of minor variances and controlling the conveyance of land in Ontario and the prevention of subdivision of land, except with governmental approval. Any person, corporation, or public body has the right to appeal either the consent decision or the conditions to the local planning appeal tribunal within 20 days of the decision notice date. Does any member of this panel have a pecuniary interest in any of the applications to be heard at this hearing?
I have none, John.
I don't have any.
I don't have any, Chair.
Thank you.
I don't.
I don't. Motion from the committee that the agenda be adopted as presented. Thank you, Mr. D'Angelo. Seconder. Mr. Ravenek, thank you. Was notice given as required by the Planning Act, Madam Secretary?
It was.
Madam Planner?
Yes.
Are there any requests for withdrawal or adjournment?
None at this time.
Thank you very much. We'll go to the first application, D10-12-2022. Seconder. Mr. Ravenek, thank you. Was notice given as required by the Planning Act, Madam Secretary?
It was.
Madam Planner?
Yes. Sorry.
Are there any requests for withdrawal or adjournment?
Not at this time.
Yes,
Sorry about that.
all right, Madam Planner, if you could get into the first application, please.
So I believe we have Nicolette here from MHBC. Would you be able to provide an overview?
Good morning. Yes, my name is Nicolette. I'm with MHBC Planning, and as the committee members will recall, we are assisting the town of Thorold in reviewing their planning applications, and I prepared the reports for each of the severance and minor variance applications. So the application we have before us right now is for 53 Wellington Street North, consent file D10-1222. The lands are zoned residential second density R2S in the zoning bylaw 214097 and designated urban living area in the city of Thorold official plan. The consent is to create a lot for single detached residential development. The retained lots will contains a residential unit which will be retained. So the new lot is a little bit undersized and requires a variance for the lot width and the lot area. The retained lot, where the house currently exists, also requires a variance for the lot width and the lot area in accordance with the R2S regulations. However, we are of the opinion that the variances are in accordance with provincial planning policy, official plan directives, and all the other requirements of the zoning bylaw are maintained. It's obvious from the plan that it's possible to create proper driveways, side yards, and a proper amenity space for each of the lots. So we are in support of this application, subject to a couple of conditions, the regular conditions as listed in the report. So it is our opinion that we are in support of the application.
Thank you, Nicolette. Who speaks on behalf of this application, please? If you could identify yourself.
I think that Michael.
Mr. Kazragas, is that you?
Yes, that's me.
Yeah, do you have any questions or comments? Do you have any questions or comments? Planning report?
No, not this time.
Members of the committee. Questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Mr. Pizzo, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Pizzo, go ahead.
I have to ask the planner a question. Do you consider 28% minor?
Nicolette?
28%, what is that in reference to?
Seeking relief for provisions 12.2 to reduce the minimum lot area of the severed parcel of part 1 from 550 to 284. Is that minor?
Well, I think what the definition of minor has been discussed a lot in the planning world, and the definition of minor should not be a mathematical equation. It is a minor effect. So zoning bylaws are put in place to create rules for that work 90% of the time. This is a perfect example, in my opinion, of where a situation where under normal circumstances, the zoning bylaw works. However, we've got an existing property that's been developed with a very, with a small sized dwelling that exists today and functions perfectly. The boulevard for the street is quite a distance from where the actual property line is. So if you go out to the site, you will see that there's a much larger side yard and front yard than what actually looks on the survey. So yes, by looking at sheer numbers alone for the lot size and the lot width, it's quite a reduction from what would be permitted in the R2S zone. However, the impact, the actual situation of the existing situation, there is no impact. So that's where we look, look at minor versus major. It's not, there is no impact. The definition of minor relates to the impact, not the actual numbers. So that's how we try to view it.
Are you saying that the surveyor was wrong?
No. I'm just saying that
Well, you just said that.
No, the conditions are such that the survey of the lands is quite a distance from the actual boulevard of the road. So you've got a very large boulevard in an interior residential subdivision. So it's a bit deceiving. I'm just saying, I'm not saying the survey is incorrect. It's just deceiving that the lot width is narrower than what is typically required in that zone.
So you're of the opinion that 48% is minor.
Yes, as I said, it's not an evaluation of numbers per se.
Well, I think that when I went to school, 48% was not minor. It was 50%, half. So what about it fronts on Cynthia Street?
Correct.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I really have a problem with the planner saying that 48% is minor. Go ahead.
Mr. Ravenak.
So the driveway for the retained lot with the retained house on it is going to be where?
It's going to be off of Cynthia Street.
Okay. And then where is the rear yard going to be for the retained lot?
Still in behind the driveway. And it is, I believe, like the whole rear yard, including the driveway. So let's say we take 10 feet away from the driveway, we've still got, we're at 12 meters for the rear yard. It's a huge rear yard. So it's in this case too, it's also an unusual situation because It's a long and narrow lot. So we've got plenty of room to create amenity space, to create a driveway, we're on a corner lot, and we don't have any issue with corner visibility triangle because the driveway is located quite a distance from the corner. So it's really, in my opinion, an ideal situation for an infill intensification property.
Mr. Ravenel,
Okay, thank you.
Mr. D'Angelo,
Just unmuting myself. Thanks for the explanation on the percentages, because yeah, the one is 48% reduction. The other one's a 57% reduction. My concern is because it's a corner lot, and when you look at it and you take an aerial view, has there been parking considerations taken into account?
Nicolette,
Yes. And that's where, is there any way, Megan, of sharing either the air photo or the survey sketch? So we can pull that up and I can illustrate what I mean about the boulevard.
Yes, let me just bring that up right now.
Okay.
I'm taking that half hour before getting to this. After this, I'm gonna start and I'm gonna start just get me.
Perfect. Thank you. So I don't know if my mouse works on this, but if you along Cynthia Street here, where I'm saying, so part of the reason this lot is so narrow is because the actual roadway is probably at least another 10 feet inside. Like, so we've got this large boulevard across Cynthia Street. And then the roadway is actually like 10 feet away from the property line. And Cynthia Street is a very small street. I highly doubt that there are any intentions of widening the boulevard. And really, this lot here itself is an existing situation. There is no change to this lot. We're maintaining side yard setbacks, which are very critical for drainage. We're able to impose a house on that second created lot with a proper driveway, with proper amenity space in the rear yard. It's a very unique situation, but in this situation, it's a prime location for intensification and a creation of an affordable lot.
Nicolette, a question for you from
Sure.
here. Are there lots similar in size to this?
Yes, I did also do an overview of the neighborhood, and it is a very there are some larger properties, but there are definitely down the street. There have been some lots created in the same fashion, very similar design, and our the client, proposing the development, he's got a very nice house design. A couple of houses down the street have been built that are very similar. We've got a bit of a mix in there. We've got further down the street, we've got 3-story apartment buildings. So it's definitely like very fitting with the neighborhood. Across the street on Wellington Street, you've got industrial lands and then the canal. So it's very much a mixed neighborhood, prime for intensification.
Mr. D'Angelo, did you get your question answered about parking?
Well, I was more concerned about the street parking, looking at the area with all these severances that are happening on the street. There's lack of street parking. And my concern then is, and a question, I'm not sure who can answer this, but what guarantee is there that when I look at the sketch design, it has a bit of a front yard And the house on Wellington, the house on Cynthia has, you mentioned 12 meters of backyard space after the driveway. What's to stop someone from just paving over the whole backyard and the whole front yard, which is happening in other houses in Thorold?
Nicolette, you want to try that one?
I'm not sure what the motive for that would be. We've
Well,
got
the lack of the motive is the lack of parking on the street. So people just now start paving their front yards so they have additional parking spots. That's a concern of
I
mine.
see.
And a
Well,
concern.
if I look at this sketch here, I mean, we've got a small, I'm going to guess 800 square foot bungalow with a driveway that will house one vehicle. There's also room on the Cynthia Street between that driveway and the adjacent owner driveway for a vehicle to park along the roadway. There would be 2 spots still along Cynthia Street that would meet zoning bylaw requirements and all other requirements between driveways to fit 2 cars on the street and 1 car in the driveway. Along Wellington Street, I'm not sure. Further down, there would be, I don't know the driveway situation further down the street. So, I mean, you know, we could add a condition into the consent that a driveways or a on-street parking plan be a condition of the severance.
Oh my God.
Megan, did you have something you wanted to add to this?
Through the chair, my only comment is the township zoning bylaw does comment on the amount of parking that a property can have in terms of width. While I believe it doesn't stop how much paving can be there, it does stop how much amount of space can be used for parking of the vehicle. So that would be regulated through the bylaw officers. So yes, that's something done after the fact, but that is something that the township does have as a resource.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Pizzo.
Mr. Chairman, the planner just hit a bad spot for me, which she mentioned parking on the street. We have a problem with parking on the street. And I guess Henry, that's what he's alluding at. Where are you going to park the cars? Not on Cynthia Street, there's no room there. Not on Wellington Street, there's no room there. And the boulevard's been there from day one, so we're not going to move the boulevard. Parking on the street, I'm against. That's it.
Other questions or comments from the committee members?
Well, John, I can certainly understand what Nicolette is saying, but I do have to kind of side with Eddie and Henry that I'm concerned about the parking and the size of the lot. That's my position right now.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Are there any members of the public that would like to address this application? I'm thinking none, but
The CBO has his hand up also. Jason Simpson.
there you are, Jason. Sorry about that. Go
No
ahead.
problem. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make comment with regards to the parking concerns. I'm, just so everyone's familiar, I'm the acting director of Planning and Development Services for the city, as well as the chief building and bylaw official. So I oversee parking enforcement within the city as well. The city of Thorold zoning bylaw does restrict parking spaces in the front yard to a maximum width, or driveways to a maximum width. So anyone who chooses to pave over their entire front yard would be in violation of that. And that would be enforced by the bylaw division. So hopefully that would help to alleviate some concerns. And nobody is guaranteed on-street parking. I understand the concerns about on-street parking. This proposed lot that is being created appears to provide the standard amount of parking for any residential lot, standard residential lot. So I just wanted to share those notes for the committee in their consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Ravenette? Was that you?
Through you, Mr. Chair, a question for Mr. Simpson. What is the maximum width of a driveway? I believe it's 24 feet.
Jason?
Yeah, give me one moment. Sorry, I'm just used to doing it in meters these days, so I'm just going to do the conversion for you.
Okay.
Yes,
And
that is
then-
correct. It's 24 feet.
Okay, and then the width of the new lot on Wellington Street, I believe, is somewhere in that general, it's about 27 feet or something.
It is just over 30 feet.
That's the
The new lot being created.
Okay.
And please also note that there is a driveway shown with a garage, so the new dwelling is actually creating more than the required number of parking spaces for a single detached dwelling per the zoning bylaw. They'll be able to provide 2 parking spaces in tandem. One within the garage and one on the driveway.
Mr. D'Angelo, did you have a question?
Yeah, just maybe the bylaw, Mr. Simpson could answer this. How many times has the infraction of exceeding the limited driveway space been enforced in the city of Thorold? Because there's numerous houses, especially the new builds, they're just paving the whole front lawn and putting parking spots there. There's numerous houses and numerous examples of that. Have those been identified, and have those infractions been categorized? Can you tell me how many times that has occurred, say in the past 2 years, where that infraction has been identified?
Certainly, thank you, through Mr. Chair to Mr. D'Angelo. I wouldn't be able to give you an exact number. I don't have the statistics in front of me at the moment, but I can say that we have enforced it on a number of occasions as we've become aware. It's not something that the bylaw officers are actively seeking out, but as we become aware of them, they do enforce it. Mind you, in those times, the individuals do have the option of applying for a minor variance, and it would come before yourselves to potentially grant the extension in the width of the parking spaces. But I know there are a number that have been enforced. As to how many, I don't have that in front of me at the moment.
Okay, well, that's my major concern here, is that with the lack of street parking, that the person will just pave over the front lawn. In the years that I've been on the Committee of Adjustments, no one's ever come here for a parking driveway with extension. So if people are doing it, they're just doing it without any consent from this committee and going beyond the required or the limited spot. So to me, that's a big concern, especially in the area that does not have a lot of street parking. You'll just see a lot more paving, and then it leads into drainage issues because now you have less grass, less greenery. So to me, if there could be a condition that well, I know it's supposed to be enforced by the bylaw, but we're here on the planning side of it. So if we could try to put a condition in there that would stop that from happening, that would definitely appease a lot of residents. Yeah, I don't know if that can be done.
About that, Mr.
If
D'Angelo.
my other committee members have any comments regarding that, I'd appreciate to hear them.
Mr. Chairman, when you get a
Go
chance.
ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'd have to go further on Mr. D'Angelo's question. My question is to Mr. Simpson. If you pave over your front lawn and the parking attendant goes by it, do you have to complain about it, or do you do something right away?
Jason?
Through Mr. Chair to Mr. Pizzo. So we typically deal with it on a complaint basis.
Well,
The
that's not
officers
right.
do have the discretion to address it proactively. They do have that ability to do so if they happen to notice it and take note of it, but they are oftentimes so busy that it's at the bottom of the list.
So you're saying you have to, they can drive by it, but they won't do anything unless somebody complains.
I'm not saying that they won't do anything, but I'm not guaranteeing that they
It's
will.
not, it's not a priority that everybody's parking on their front lawn right now.
So parking on the front lawn is addressed regularly, but the paving over the front lawn, if the extension of if the front yard is paved more than the 7.5 meters, that is not typically a high priority in comparison to all the other issues that they're dealing with. It's not that it won't be addressed, it just may not be addressed in a timely manner once they're aware of it.
Mr. Ravenek, did you have your hand up?
No, I didn't know.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask another question?
You sure can, Mr.
To
Pizzo.
the planner, is there any history on this property been turned down prior to this application?
Nicolette?
I wouldn't have any information on that. That would, Jason, I don't know if somebody from the city can look, has the history on that.
Because I think it's been turned down once before.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's not information that we have before us at this time, so I wouldn't be able to comment.
No, I can't remember this property being dealt with before, but we can certainly look into that.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion.
Go ahead, Mr. Pizzo.
Through the
I'm
chair, I have a
not-
comment from the public that was asked to be read in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries.
Go ahead. Nick.
So through the chair, the Donette family at 3 Cynthia Street sent me a document that they asked to be read in as they could only stay on until 10 a.m. This evening. So it says, to whom it may concern, living at 3 Cynthia Street, we are strongly against the building of a 2-story house at 53 Wellington Street. Having lived here for the past 5 years, we like the quietness of the street and the stunning views of the boats passing by the Welland Canal. By allowing a 2-story house so close to our house, it will completely block our views and forbid us from enjoying the morning sunrise and our view of the canal. Our 2 windows in the kitchen and washroom are on the Wellington side. Having a 2-story house so close from the limit of the property will greatly affect our privacy and peacefulness of living in Thorold we've been enjoying. We are living in a residential area in mostly low-rise houses in a decent sized lot. A 2-story house will look like the huge one built at 41.5 Wellington Street a few months ago. None will argue that this enormous white and gray block is completely out of place in this street and changes in the bad way of the general feeling of the neighborhood. Seeing the changes coming, the house next door went and sold their property, pushing the owners out of the area. The same is happening here. A house next to this lot is being sold by an old gentleman who has been living here for decades. Thorold, being a historic town trying to develop tourism in the way Niagara-on-the-Lake successfully did, allowing this type of new construction without careful architecture and so close to downtown will definitely affect the charming of the town and the attraction for tourists. To conclude, we understand the necessity for the city to grow, but we would only agree to have a 1-story house being built on this site. Thank you for your consideration. Kind regards.
Thank you, Megan. Mr. Pizzo, you were about to make a motion.
Motion that we decline this application. I have to agree with Henry. There's no parking. Everybody says, oh, there's 2 parking spots, but there's 3-bedroom house. Everybody's got a car. And as far as the planning goes, I disagree with her. 48% is minor. I think it's a major. So I'm inclined to disagree with this application.
Mr. D'Angelo.
On the floor is a motion, and I can record it vote.
I'll second that motion.
Now, this is D10-12-2022, right?
Along with D13, 14 and D 1315. So there's two minor variances along with it.
Should we do them all together or or separately?
Well, if you turn it, the application down, what's the use?
So through the chair, there's the consent application that does not that's different than the minor variance applications. The minor variances allow for what committee member Pizzo was saying about the 48%. Not that I'm commenting on the minor major component of that, but I would say they each have different merit and they should be maybe tackled separately.
Thank you. So your motion, Mr. Pizzo, is on D-10-12-2022, the consent application, moved and seconded by Mr. D'Angelo. Further questions and comments? Seeing none. All in favor of the motion?
I asked for a recorded vote.
That's unanimous. Against the motion? D-13-14-2022, the minor variance. Can I have a mover, please? Need a mover. Yea or nay?
I didn't follow you. A mover for what? I wasn't listening.
The D-13-14-2022, the minor variance. Is that the retained parcel? Or is this doesn't matter, does it?
I get if the consent has been all against, then the minor variances aren't relevant. I would assume if Nicolette, I believe she seems to agree. So
Nicolette, can we just ignore the other two, in your opinion?
The consent, I think what should happen is if you're turning down the consent is conditional on approval of the minor variances. So automatically, I believe that they would cancel each other out.
Mr. Chairman, it's only common sense that they would delete the rest of them.
But we have applications
Yeah.
before us.
So I would say, from my opinion, just for clerical, if we could make a motion on the minor variances, that would be best.
Yes, agreed. I think there should be motions and
We have applications before, so we have to have a decision on. It's an easy decision, but somebody has to move it and second it.
Well, can you include it in my motion? I'll make a new
No,
motion.
let's do it. We have to do it separately, Mr. Pizzo. Could you make a motion for those other two, please, to turn them
Yes,
down?
I will. I made the motion, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Pizzo. Mr. D'Angelo, would you like to second those two? Thank you. All in favor? Thank you very much. Moving on to D-10-13 and D-13-15, 2292 Center Street. Nicolette?
yes. So again, we have a property that is located at the intersection of Center Street and Henderson Street. This application before us is for the creation of a new lot. Sorry, I'm just pulling up my new report. Oh, so sorry, you've got that on the screen.
Yeah.
Just sorry, just give me one moment here.
So through the chair, I'd just like to point out the agent of this application had commented on the report once I had sent it out, making 2 notes. Those notes were sent to MHBC, and as of last night, they provided new conditions to actually reflect what was needed to be reflected in the conditions as identified by Upper Canada Consulting. So the new conditions I have up on the screen so you can all see them.
What are those, Megan, please?
Nicolette can help me here, but number 4, it before it was the payment, I believe, of 2%, and now it's the payment of 5%. And there was another comment, but maybe Nicolette will be able to help talk about that in her presentation.
Yes, no problem. Yes, because part of this consent application is also requires a partial discharge of a mortgage. So we'll get to that. So here we have a very large lot with that is in the urban living area and zoned residential first density. The severed parcel, the newly created lot, will meet all of the zoning bylaw requirements for front yard setback, side yards, rear yards. That's the intention. The retained parcel does have an existing house, which is intended to be retained. I believe what's happening is the driveway is being reoriented, and the details of that are unknown at this time. But because of the location of the existing house, a deficiency in the rear yard is required. So the requirement is for 7.5 meters, and the creation of the new lot will reduce the rear yard to 3.1 meters. Now, again, this is a situation where if you look at the property as a whole, it has a very large front yard. So I can't read the numbers, but it is a 12-meter front yard setback. So we have basically what we're doing is trading off a smaller rear yard for very large side yards and a very large front yard because we're on a corner lot. Part two, as I mentioned, the newly severed created lot will meet all the zoning bylaw requirements. Again, in my opinion, this is a property that is ripe for intensification and redevelopment consistent with provincial policy and directives to create affordable housing where we can. And in this situation, we totally support the proposed development. The conditions are relating to the discharge of the mortgage, partial discharge of the mortgage. And again, the condition 4, as Megan indicated, requires a 5% payment of the parkland dedication on the newly created lot rather than the 2% that is shown. So that should be reflected in the final decision. I think that's everything.
Is that the only correction or amendment, Nicolette? The one condition, is that the only amendment that we haven't seen yet?
The condition 1 should also indicate that the owner provide an undertaking for condition 2 should that it also be a partial discharge. I believe Megan has the wording in the newly revised report. So if we can reflect the decision on the revised report that was sent, and there she's sharing it. So there we go.
So the mortgage discharge and the change of 2% to 5%. Those are
That's
the
correct.
amendments that we haven't seen.
Yeah.
Thank you. Who speaks on behalf of this application, please? Identify
Good morning,
yourself.
Mr. Chair. Craig Rowe, Upper Canada Consultants, on behalf of the property owners.
Good morning, Mr. Rowe. Go ahead.
Great. I'm just going to share my screen here if I may. I appreciate staff's quick response to my inquiry about the conditions. I'm glad that those are rectified. Obviously, partial discharge of mortgage, very important if a consent is granted. So I have read through some of the public comments that we've received, and I felt it would be appropriate just to provide a brief walkthrough of the application. I think that Nicolette did a nice job of setting out the policy framework. I just want to kind of bring us down onto the ground and show you what the application really entails here. So the subject lands in question, 2292 Center Street, so at the corner of Center and Henderson, and then Barron Road would be further south, Highway 20 up at the north here. The area in question for the new lot is this open area here on the property. So this is, I'm sure the committee members have been out to the property, but this is looking east from Center Street. So this is the aesthetic front of the house, prominent towards Center Street. And Ms. Van Ooyen is correct. There's about a 12-meter setback from the legal property line to the front of the dwelling. This would be along Henderson Street, looking at the property. So this is kind of the aesthetic side. There's a little bit of this deck structure that's proposed to be removed, as well as the detached garage, which will also be removed to facilitate the development of the property. And and then this is the area in question. So generally the lot line is coming along here. So this is some the existing amenity area between the house and that detached garage, just for reference. So overall, it's a severance to create a new lot within the urban area. That new proposed lot has been sized to meet the minimum lot area and frontage. We've done some preliminary drawings with our client and are confident that we can fit permitted uses on the property. It can be sized and meet all the setbacks, so we have no concerns from that nature. By doing the severance and setting up the lot areas, it ensures that the legal frontage for the property remains as Center Street because it's shorter than the exterior side yard of 27. So from a zoning perspective, front yard, rear yard, exterior side yard, interior side yard, and then for the new parcel, front, rear, interior, interior. So although the request for reduced rear yard setback is 3.1 meters, it only pertains to that existing portion of the dwelling that I cited here that sticks out a little bit. From the back corner of that open amenity area, we are achieving conformity with the zoning bylaw. And it's laid out in our planning justification that we did submit with these applications. We felt that there was certainly ample amenity space surrounding this house. There'd be no negative impact on adjacent property owners, as the reduction is only between this lot and the proposed lot. Everything is staying in situ here. There's still that same separation. And there's plenty of room for outdoor amenity and enjoyment on the property. So I just want to clarify that, as I did see in some of the public comments, it seemed to infer that we were proposing construction on this house and bringing this closer to this lot line because some individuals, I'm sorry, sir, I'm speaking right now. It may be inferred that the front yard could be Henderson Street because that's where the driveway is, but we're speaking strictly from a zoning standpoint right now. So I just wanted to provide that clarity to the committee members, and I hope that it is helpful. And with that, I'll stop my comments there and happy to address any comments that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, comments from committee members? Mr. D'Angelo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of questions here. One, through the process here, it was identified that there's been no decision made on where the new driveway is going to be on the existing house. If someone can answer that question.
Mr. Rowe.
Happy to do that through Mr. Chair to Member D'Angelo. We had discussions through pre-consultation and the city said that there was no real preference, but as we went forward to finalize, we'd have some discussions with their departments about where, sorry, I got a fly buzzing around here. Discussions about where the preferred driveway option would be on the property. So we presented two options in a conceptual plan that came in with our submission. The first would be to establish a new driveway off Center Street, and that's consistent. There's a driveway for the adjacent property here off Center. Or we have more than enough room between the property line and the existing dwelling to provide a legally sized parking space on the property and kind of work with the geometry here. And then as we go forward and consider development on here, provide ample spacing for driveway separation. So both of those options are available and they have been presented to staff. And pending the approval of these applications, we'd be happy to refine that and come to a location that's most preferable to the city. Our client has no preference.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay, no, that's good to hear because like I said, I didn't want sightline issues to become a problem there. The other question I have is the removal of the garage. That'll be totally removed, or will it be relocated on the new property potentially?
Mr. Rowe.
Sorry, on the existing property.
Through Mr. Chair, the intention is that garage will be demolished and there's no intention to construct a new one at this time for the retained parcel.
Okay, thank you. Those are my two questions at this point.
Thank you, Mr. D'Angelo. Further questions or comments from committee members?
I have a question.
Mr. Pizzo.
My question is to the planner. How many feet would this 3.1 meters be involved? It looks like it's a short distance. What's the
Mr. Rowe? Doing your calculations as we speak here.
Yep, just give me a moment here, Mr. Chair. 3.1 meters to feet is 10.1 feet, sir.
the distance that it's going to be, the 3.1 is involved?
Through Mr. Chair, the 3.1 meters would be from the corner of that existing structure to the proposed lot line. And that would be a distance of 3.1 meters at minimum, or 10.1 feet of separation.
Yeah.
The,
Okay. But that's good.
Thank you.
But it's not minor as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Seeing none from the committee members, are there public members that would like to address this application? I see none. Oh, Mr. Taylor.
Hello, my name's Bill Petrushko. I'd like to speak if that's possible.
Go ahead, Bill.
I live at 2296 Center Street, right beside this house. Just to give you a little bit of history in Allenburg. These houses are both 170 years old, mine in the 2292 Center Street. They're not on their original foundations. They were placed here after the completion of the Fourth Welland Canal. These lots have been probably built up from the excavation material from the Welland Canal. The lot we're talking about, 2292, and the proposed severed property is the lowest portion in this block, which through my experiences, I've been here for 40 years, is that acts as a drainage basin for this whole area. Saying that, I don't know how much value that means. Basically, what I'd like to talk about is this 3.1 meter setback and the variance. Why are these dimensions in place in the code? To go from 7.5 to 3.1 is significant. And for that property to be severed, it really isn't that important to me. But what's going to happen to this severed piece of land? And why would I expect to have that severed land, then to have a structure built on it without any possible more applications coming forward, to then decrease the setbacks on all sides? And as far as across the street, there's two semi-detached homes, duplexes, that are in place, which I never ever recall seeing the variance. And who's to say that all of a sudden these applications then go to a duplex beside my home, and I can assure you there'll be water issues there. So I'm definitely against this application for this 3.1. The only person that's going to gain here is this developer. I've been here for 40 years. Anybody that's living in this neighborhood does not want to see this property severed. This home has all these great big setbacks from the front and the side yard, because that's the way it was planned back then. All the properties in this neighborhood are approximately a third of an acre, all about the same size, and there are a couple that are much larger. You know, earlier you spoke about Cynthia Street and Wellington Street. I grew up on Chapel Street. And there's all kinds of additions that went to that neighborhood. And when I was young, that was a beautiful neighborhood. Now it's just congested with multi-unit apartment buildings, and they destroyed it. The planning department allowed so many places in Thorold to just get crowded with houses and apartment buildings. And I hate like heck to see that happen to Allenburg, a community that's been here since the early 1800s. So take that for whatever it's worth. And I hope you understand that I am totally against allowing this rear yard setback to be decreased to 3.1. I think the 7.5 should be maintained, and then this lot cannot be severed. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill, for your time. Mr. Jansen, you can have the floor now. Mr. Jansen?
Great. Yep, great, thank you.
There you are.
Yeah, I just like to second what Bill just mentioned. I definitely agree with everything he says. I think the big point that I'd like to stick out is, yeah, the community. If you look at all the lots in the area, this lot is almost half the size of all the other in the neighborhood. It just doesn't fit with the neighborhood at all. There's also 4 large, very mature trees on the property. I live in Henderson, right next door to this proposed lot severance, and it's going to majorly affect like the visual and the environmental of the area. And I just don't understand why they have to sever such a small piece of land for, I understand that they're going under this density bylaw, but Thorold has all this farm field. They're doing massive developments just down the road in these open fields. Why do they need to sever such a small land and put a house between these old lots and totally change the look of a neighborhood that is a historic neighborhood that I recently moved into because I wanted the privacy, the trees, the open space, the parking. I imagine now there's nobody that parks on our street. And I imagine what with the limited parking or the driveway sizes for these lots, that now people are going to be parking on the streets. The only sidewalk available is on that side of the street. It's, I think, going to create more of a danger. There's tons of families, old retired people with walking their animals, pets. I just love to understand why this has to happen in Allenburg, where it's just a mature neighborhood, and it's not going to fit in with the rest of the neighborhood. I don't know if anybody in the committee can give me an answer of why this has to happen this way, where they're cramming in a house. And I'd also like to know from the developer side what type of house they're building, what size, how many stories, and is it just a single family home dwelling?
Megan.
There is another individual here, Fred, who would also like to comment out when there's a chance.
Okay. We'll get to Fred in a minute. Mr. Rowe, would you like to comment on either one of those previous discussions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's really not much for me to address from a planning standpoint. I mean, these are kind of anecdotal comments that I can appreciate. We hear them often when it comes to infill. It is, it can be challenging with neighborhoods in transition, but the fact is that there is a housing crisis going on. And our client has a parcel of land that can be adequately severed, has the support of the planning department, and conforms with the official plan, satisfies all the zoning, and the only zoning relief is being asked for an existing portion of an existing dwelling that's to be retained, maintaining that character of that neighborhood. With regards to matters of drainage, any sort of works on the property are subject to the review of the city's engineering department to make sure there's no negative impacts. We all know the test for stormwater. It's got to be dealt with on your property. It can't spill over onto others. And maybe just for the committee, what I would note is that, just in my own planning opinion, I don't feel with regards to the property to the north that the reduction of the setback from the proposed lot line would have any impact on that individual. There's no development coming any closer to them. And then this property is separated by way of their driveway. They have a full driveway and garden, and then the house. And same with Mr. Jansen next door. He does have his driveway running along it with a side yard condition face towards this property. So I can appreciate the concerns and that change can be difficult, but from my standpoint, this is a very good planning application. It's an appropriate location for development. Satisfies all the requirements of the Planning Act, Section 5124, and satisfies the 4 tests of a minor variance.
Thank you. Fred, you had a comment you'd like to make? Fred Regier?
Sorry, yes, my name is Fred Regier. I own and reside at 1555 Henderson Street, which is directly across from the proposed properties that we're discussing. The first comment or question, I guess, I would like to bring is I wonder how many people are not at this meeting because they were not either communicated with during the 30 days or 60 days that the sign was up. I'll tell you my experience. June 2nd, I sent my initial email requesting to be at this meeting with no response. June 6th, I sent my second email with no response. June 13th, I sent my third email with no response. And June 15th, which was just yesterday, I sent my 4th email with no response until, actually I called 2 times as well. I left a message with, they didn't tell me the name. It was the boss of Angela Nesbitt. Is that Nicolette possibly? I don't know, but I left a message and had no response. This morning at 8:04 a.m., I finally had a response from Megan, sending me the report and the Zoom meeting link. My question is, are there people, residents, who wanted to be at this meeting who gave up because no one responded to them? So I'm wondering, are there people? And I'm wondering if this meeting needs to be rescheduled. That's my first question. Because it seems to me like what's the word called? Due diligence may not have been done for this meeting.
Megan.
So
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I can just comment.
Hang on a second, please.
Okay.
Megan has the floor. Thank you.
So through the chair, I just like to comment that it has been a tricky couple weeks. Angie, the Committee of Adjustment Secretary, has been away. I've been going through her emails as much as possible, searching for the file number for each application, and whenever I can try and see that there's email related that includes the file number, I have been sending the report and the Zoom link. So I'm reviewing your email. So the last email from you, Fred, definitely does have the file number, but I think the first email might not have had the file number, so that's why I didn't find it originally when I was going through her emails, because I've been going through both her emails and my emails. So I'm sorry about, I'm definitely would say sorry for that reply. You did include the file number in your Monday email, but not in the first email. So I am sorry for that delay. But I have been actively trying to go through both my emails and our other employees' emails to send out the responses. But I would say sorry for the delay, but I have been searching for the file numbers. We had Jesse and Bill who both did provide the file numbers and was able to provide them with the comment.
Thank you, Megan. Nicolette?
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, I just also wanted to reiterate the unusual circumstances at the city of Thorold, where Megan has really recently just come on board with the planning department, I believe in the last couple of weeks. And as you are aware, committee members, prior to that, the last committee of adjustment meeting, we were hired as a consultant to handle the city's planning applications. We don't have access to the city's email, so we are, working through the system to try as best as we can to get, to do everything according to the Planning Act and the regulations. And so our apologies for possibly missing some of the neighborhood comments. We always welcome neighborhood input in advance of the meeting. We prefer to, work through situations, but it's a bit of an unusual situation, I think, for the city of Thorold at the moment, with basically Megan and Jason running their entire planning department with no support staff, and then us acting as consultants handling the applications. So just so you know what the situation is.
Thank you, Nicolette.
Yeah, thank you.
Well said. Go ahead, Fred, if you have anything else, something new, Mary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for those answers. I guess I'm still concerned. It sounds like there could be some who've fallen through the cracks. And so I'm wondering if any of the other committee members feel this is a large enough issue to reschedule a meeting, or if they don't. And I mean, if you don't, then I definitely have more comments, but I wouldn't mind hearing whether this is a legitimate concern.
Committee members, Mr. Ravenik.
Mr. Chair, I think that Fred has raised a valid point, and neither Megan nor Nicolette can really give us any amount of satisfaction that there could not be other people out there that could have sent requests in that could have been missed. So I wouldn't be adverse to deferring this to make sure that there's no administrative issues in other residents having had an opportunity to file comments.
Is that a motion to defer, Mr. Ravenik?
Yes, I'll make that motion to defer based on the administrative issues that the planning department has faced.
I'll second that motion.
Do we have a seconder for that? motion?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Pizzo. No further discussion on a deferral motion. All in favor of the deferral motion, please. Thank you very much.
Just one other question,
Go ahead, Mr.
Chair. To Megan and or Nicolette, will notices be sent out again so that people are aware that there's been a deferral, like the other residents in the neighborhood that may have been interested, that may not be aware that there's a deferral, and that they will have an opportunity to comment at the next meeting?
Megan?
Through my experience in other municipalities, when there's a deferral, it's not necessary that there's notice of a deferral, but there's a re-notice that goes out about the new meeting. So when for an application, when the application gets presented to the public, that gets presented as a public notice sign on the property, and then a mail out, and then on the website. And then anyone who's interested can comment. And then when there's the meeting itself, the decision is only sent out to those who are interested. We don't, from my experience, mail out the decision to everyone around. So I would say that would be the same in this case. Residents wouldn't be notified that there's a deferral, but they would be notified with a new public notice sign and new mail out about the new hearing. That would be my experience.
Mr. D'Angelo?
Well, will that be for the next meeting, or has the notification date, is there enough time for the next meeting, or will there be 2 meetings from now, just to make sure that we give proper notification?
For the July, it would not be going for July because the deadline to apply is over.
Okay, that's what I thought. So I just want to make sure the public is fully aware so that they get so it'll be 2 meetings before this comes back then, at the earliest.
If it is chosen to come back from the applicants.
Okay.
Mr. Rowe, go ahead.
Maybe, yeah, sorry. I mean, obviously, we're quite disappointed to see this delayed now 2 months. We provided a complete application with all the necessary information. And I can appreciate the challenges of the planning department, and I can sympathize with Fred's comments there. I think that is certainly a matter of concern. The only other thing I would point out is that we shouldn't just be focused on the mailing. There were 2 public notice signs posted on this site that contain the necessary information. So I would ask on behalf of our client that we be scheduled as soon as possible to come back with this matter, please, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe.
And I will also say that through you, Mr. Chair, that I concur with Craig's assessment of the situation. Proper public notice, et cetera, was given for this application. That wasn't the gist of my conversation. I was just indicating that the current circumstances in the planning department are different, but we have met all the requirements for public notification, and all persons that responded to the applications were notified of today's meeting and have had their chance to voice their concerns. And again, we are in support of this application. If we can bring it forward any sooner, I'd be happy to support that.
Thank you, Nicolette. I think.
Can I comment on
Megan
this?
and- No. Megan and her staff of one will look into any way to bring it forward quicker than the August meeting.
Can I speak on this for a second, please? Bill Petrusko here.
Bill.
Bill, we're over here. We're moving
Yeah,
on. Now. We're moving on now, Bill.
Moving on.
There's no discussion on a motion to defer.
Okay, so
Motion
we're
to
done here.
defer has been passed. End of discussion. Now we
Sorry
move on
about
to
that. John, I hope I didn't bother you.
Now we move on to F10, D10, 14, 2022. Nicolette, please.
Yes, this application is before you is just, I'm just pulling up my apologies.
That's okay.
Still. Give me one moment while I pull up my planning report for this application.
Brutal. Wow. Look how text them.
Okay, so we have an application on the east side of Gaynor Street, north of Barron Road. The lands are surrounded by both industrial employment uses to the west and largely residential uses to the east. The lands are designated urban living area in the city of Thorold. And in addition, the rear portion of the lands has a greenfield overlay. The lands are zoned R1A residential first density in the zoning bylaw 2140-97. In this instance, we've got two lots that are proposing to be consolidated with the adjacent lots behind them that are basically landlocked, i.e. they have no road access. So they are being added as lot additions to the existing lots. There is a survey sketch that shows the lots being consolidated. So we are simply looking here to consolidate properties and create larger lots that front onto Gaynor Street. No special conditions, just that parts 1 and 3 merge in title and parts 2 and 4 end up merging in title. The application is consistent with and conforms to provincial, regional, and local policies, and we are supportive of the application.
Thank you, Nicolette. Who speaks on behalf of this application, please? Could you identify yourself? Is there someone there who speaks to this behalf of this application?
The Riddle. Nadine.
Yes, Nadine Riddle and Bill Riddle. Bill Riddle is one of the owners of the lot in the back, along with Mr. Al Vanderloos. And they currently want to just add it on to the existing properties onto Gaynor Street.
Thank you. Questions or comments from committee members?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Pizza.
this is a nice and clean application. I'd like to put the motion on the floor that we approve, subject to the recommendations of the planning department. Put it on the floor for
Thank you. Do we have a
consideration.
seconder for that motion? And then
I can second that, John.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Questions or comments from the public on this property?
Yes, I have a question.
Could you identify yourself? I don't.
Pauline.
Is this Pauline talking?
Yes,
Yeah, okay. Pauline, go ahead.
the subject lands where they're gonna be building, when they do the construction, are they gonna build a fence behind us to separate the properties? And also during the spring, this land has a lot of water that collects due to the thaw, and the drainage would be something that I wonder how they're going to address, because It's like,
Megan?
So I'm just gonna maybe re-articulate what the proposal is. It's just merging lands to get the existing lots larger, not to build a house. So the area is vacant and it's just being merged onto the backyard.
so there's no building of houses.
Not at this time, Pauline. It's just
But-
cleanup.
Is that their plan for the future then, to build later? Are they getting it ready so they can sell and build later?
I'm just gonna share my screen again. So
Yes.
just give me a second.
I'm not clear on that.
Yeah. Okay. So can you see a map come up?
Yes.
So there's properties facing the road that are parts 3 and 4. So those are houses. And then in their backyard right now is a vacant land. So that's so right now parts 1 and 2 are together. In theory, there's 3 lots existing now. And after the end of this report, there will be only 2 lots. So where the other applications tonight were to create a lot, this is in theory getting rid of a lot to make existing lots bigger. And on one lot, you can only have 1 house. So there's no proposal for a new house.
Oh,
Like an extra house.
I
Does
understand.
So number 1 and 3 will merge together, and number 2 and 4 will merge together, getting rid of what is currently existing of 1 and 2 together.
Oh, okay. I understand.
Okay, is that clear for you, Pauline?
Yes, thank you.
Good, good.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Pizzo.
I have a question for Mr. Riddle. Mr. Riddle, are you making it bigger to put an ice rink in there?
No,
You don't even want to show
No,
your
Eddie.
face?
John, I also have a question.
Go ahead, Mr. Jackson.
If
Hopefully
I
it's a
could.
serious one.
This is maybe through you to Megan. The term greenfield overlay has been used in this application or defining this application. I'm not familiar with what that exactly means.
Megan?
Through the chair, I would direct it to Nicolette just because I didn't write the report.
Passed off to you, Nicolette.
Yes, and I did review the Greenfield overlay policies. However, I don't have them at my fingertips at the moment. I'll just have to pull up my report again.
Okay, that's fine, Nicolette. We can address this later. It doesn't really affect this situation, this application. It's just something that I'd like to familiarize myself with.
So
And-
I can, yeah. So greenfield overlay basically means that they're located outside of the built boundary and are planned to achieve population densities in accordance with the provincial policy. The existing lots are landlocked parcels, so that's the critical piece of information here. Like they're under the way they're set up right now, they can't be developed on.
Right.
And it's just a correction of lot lines, basically. It's not to create further development. It's a correction of lot lines.
Okay, that's fine, Nicolette. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Seeing no other comments, are we ready for the question on the motion?
Fred has his hand
Oh,
up.
I'm sorry, Fred. Didn't see you, sorry. I'm about tired with this Zoom. Go ahead, Fred.
Oh, I'm tired of it too. I had the chance to speak to Bill Riddle on my way home from work the other day and saw the sign up there, and I realized it was the same date and time, the meeting, as was the property across the street. And so I stopped and talked to him about it and got a little history lesson. If you don't know, I'm going by Bill's words. Many years ago, I don't know how many years ago, him and the neighbor purchased the property behind their place to create a park for the community. At the time, I don't believe there was a park, or there was a community center park. And they took it upon themselves to purchase the land and cut the grass every week. And he said dozens of kids played there all the time. And I mean, if that's not, I'm just kind of, reflecting back on the city of Thorold's official plan. And there's a number of areas there that Bill Riddle fits into. He's protecting and enhancing the small town character under the urban character goals. I totally agree with adding these two lots to adding 1 and 2 to lot 3 and 4. Bill and his neighbor, they're not that young anymore. They're probably around 65, maybe.
Oh.
And he wants to be able to, when he passes it on, to have someone else use that land and that property, and his property will be much larger. And it's actually great to see properties sizes increase rather than decrease and be chopped apart and sold as smaller severed parts. So I just wanted to agree with this suggestion.
Thank you, Fred.
Thank you.
I think we're ready for the question. Committee members, all in favor of the motion? Thank you. Passed. I'm assuming we don't have minutes for approval.
Not at this time.
That's fine.
Okay.
Is there any new business that we need to discuss before the adjournment?
There is not at this time. I would just re-articulate that Angie might not be back for the July meeting.
That's fine.
So it'll be myself and MHBC for the July meeting.
You'll be a veteran by then.
Henry has a question.
Mr. DeAndre.
Thank you, Chair. Just in regards to the deferred reports, can we make sure, because it was mentioned during the application and there was concerns from one of the residents regarding drainage issues. I know in the report, the engineering department or division made no comment, but could we get them to comment on the drainage, any drainage issues that might be potentially with that application? Just being a little proactive here so that we have an answer to one of the questions.
Well, being proactive, that will be done, dealt with at site plan, but Megan, go ahead.
So through the chair, I believe the agent of the application mentioned all drainage has to be dealt with on a subject property. That's just a requirement in general. I'm not sure with that application if there's a proposed house at this time, which is maybe why the engineering department didn't have any comments. Because there was nothing to really review at this time, and that would be dealt with during building permit stage. But when it comes through next time, I'll be more actively a part of that application to interact with engineering about it.
Mr. Chair, that would be excellent. Just it provides the committee a little bit further information and the residents also. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. D'Angelo. Seeing no further comments. Thank you, committee members. This is a difficult time here in the city and everybody's pulling in the same direction. Well done. We have a motion to adjourn.
I can make that motion, John.
Mr. Jackson, all in favor. Stay safe, everyone.